call to order the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Ventilli, do the roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Covert,
Here.
here. Ms. Knox,
Here.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Here.
Mr. Venatelli is here, Ms. Berkmeyer.
Here.
Mr. Powers.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Everybody's here.
Thank you. I'd like to get approval on the agenda with just two slight modifications. I'd like to move the approval of the agenda up to letter C. And I'd also would like to add a NRA field trip to our new business, be line item 3, letter D for a new field trip for the NRA show. With those changes, would anyone entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I will make the motion with those changes.
I'll support.
Mr. Colbert. Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? No? All right, hearing none, call the roll, please.
Thank you, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Venatelli is a yes, Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
and Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, moving on, we have an MICI curriculum presentation by the Special Education Department.
Can you guys hear me all right? Awesome. Okay. So Mr. Guzmano is just passing out copies for all of you of the presentation that's up on the screen because there are just a couple of pieces that it might be nice to see up close. So we thought we'd make some extra copies. And we are very fortunate to have a lot of parents and a lot of staff here tonight. So we do have staff. I know last year when we talked about the adoption of the ULS curriculum and that went through the board vote, we had mentioned that we would come back and we'd love to share what it looks like, how the first year with the curriculum went. So we did ask some staff if they are interested, if they wanted to stop in today. They are here as well, but we collected some feedback and we just wanted to share updates with you all about how it's going with the first year of implementation. So just to give you all a little overview, it's been a while, it's been a year, but the Unique Learning System is the name of the MySci curriculum that we adopted last year. It is being utilized by our ECSE preschool programs all the way through our high school MySci programs. And it is a comprehensive and flexible curriculum. It allows us to do a lot of different adapted activities, accommodated work, differentiated levels, all with providing hands-on learning opportunities. So we have a couple pictures throughout. This was a really great picture of one of our elementary programs utilizing one of the cooking lessons that's involved within the math portion of the curriculum. We thought we'd break it down a little bit for you into the components that are included in the curriculum. There is the academic curriculum itself, and then there are a lot of subcomponents that are also being utilized by our staff in some really awesome ways. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the academic portion, the Symbols Prime portion, which supports our students who are not able to communicate verbally so that they have access to the curriculum and are equally able to participate and answer questions and follow along and learn from the units. Positivity, which is more of a behavior-based add-on to the program. Transition, which is being utilized by our high school program to support like work-based skills and kind of getting students ready for the workforce. And then our News to You component, which is our current event option that is tied on to the middle school levels of our program. So we're going to go into a little detail about each of them. If you have any questions and want us to pause and explain, if we get too much into special education wording here, please pause us and we will gladly answer and give you a little more context. So the academic curriculum is the core piece we talked a lot about last year. It is organized in monthly units, and what's really great about it is that each grade level, grade band, covers the same topic, but in a more or less complex way. So across the district, we're sort of following the same thematic units throughout the year. So it really is great for vertical alignment for our staff. The standards are woven into all the lessons. It works with the Common Core essential elements, which are the adapted standards. Assessments, staff are allowed to give pre and post assessments. There's also benchmark assessments along the way that allow us to collect data and really make decisions for supporting students' IEPs and IEP goals on an individualized basis. And there's a really awesome student dashboard. You'll see a couple pictures throughout of students interacting with the online portion of the program as well. Symbols Prime is a wonderful addition. This is something that we were able to also incorporate with our district behaviorist. She's able to come in and use the Symbols Prime to create charts for students, personalized individual schedules for students, rewards charts, all sorts of different ways to help us foster communication for all of our students. So Symbols Prime really focuses on supporting communication, but also supporting communication through symbols that are familiar and similar across all grade bands. So all students are able to, from preschool up, see some commonality between what they are working with and what the lessons incorporate. Positivity, I think, is probably a big hit for some people in this room. It has been a new add-on that we were able to explore this year. And the purpose of it is for behavior and engagement support. So this is not necessarily just to jump in and handle difficult behaviors with students, but also just to help engage all of our learners. So I won't bore you with reading off of the slides, but I did include a little bit on here about what it is and how it works. What I would love to point out is it has some really great options of visuals that we can provide for our students to allow them, if a break is needed or if a calming strategy might need to happen before we move on to the next thing. We have options embedded right into our curriculum that a teacher can just send a student in live time. If they're starting to see that maybe they're getting frustrated and they're working on an assessment, they can send a break to their screen, or they can send a calming strategy right to their screen that allows them to sort of pause and reset and get started again. What we've noticed based on feedback from our staff and some observations as we've visited rooms is that the engagement has increased immensely. We're not on the computers the entire time. There's a lot of hands-on learning involved too, but even when students are left to do independent work, the engagement has really flourished because we feel as though our teachers have a better consistent grasp on being able to give differentiated supports throughout their lessons. The next one is transition. And this is something that our high school team, once we started working through the curriculum, really wanted to explore further. One of our big focuses at the 9th through 12th grade level is transition. What are we going to do after high school and how are we going to get there? What's really great about this curriculum is there is a component embedded right in that allows them to really work on just life skills, work skills, resume building, banking, functional math, functional reading. Some of the units will include how to navigate a map, how to navigate a map on Google, how to navigate a map on a phone, and really working with students on independent skills to work through the skills they may need when they are after high school and out on their own and navigating transition in their individualized way. And then news to you, this is being utilized by our middle school program and a couple of our high school classes as well. This component is really interesting. It will cover current events, but it'll cover it in an adapted way where the staff can differentiate the news articles. They can differentiate the questions or the prompts to really learn a little bit about what's going on in their world and how their world impacts them. It allows them to reflect. It allows the educators in our classes to really hone in on some real world application for our students without having to search for a bunch of different resources. It's all within one all-encompassing program. So these are the components of ULS that our staff have found to be the most appropriate for their students that they're using on a day-to-day basis. What Mr. Cusimano and I were most excited about was the opportunity to really look at data. We have this curriculum, we're using it across the board. We wanted to pull a sample set of data for you guys. We decided to pull data from our middle school group because they're sort of right in the middle. And we wanted to see what does it look like since we've implemented this for the first school year? Are we seeing any trends? What direction is it trending in? And how are our students responding in regards to actually maintaining the content that we're teaching? So on the next slide, you will see a little comparison of data. The slide on the left, or the diagram on the left, will show you student scores from fall of 24 to this fall. And this is reading and math all encompassing. All of the little symbols are a different student and a different score that they have received on the NWEA, their growth within those 2 periods of time. So this quadrant is really nice. One thing I like to point out is this is looking at achievement versus growth. So low achievement, low growth is that bottom left red square. And you can see that that's sort of what we were seeing in that first box. The quadrant on the right will show you, or the diagram on the right will show you where data is showing us right now. So this is the same sample of students, just a new testing session. And you'll notice that majority of the symbols have moved up to the top left. That quadrant is considered to have high growth. So we're not necessarily always just looking at achievement. We know that we have to meet our students where they are for achievement levels. We're looking at their individual growth. And this quadrant sort of shows you how our bundle of students went from low growth to high growth since we have adopted this curriculum. So we were pretty excited to share that through the winter. Yes. So when spring is finished, we can run some more reports if you're interested, but that is our latest sample of data that we were pretty excited to show today. And then we also collected some feedback from staff, from students, from parents. And so we wanted to share that with you as well. So that's embedded in the next few slides. Staff feedback. I just included a few quotes. It was really exciting to sort of hear some of the things that the staff had to say. When Mr. Cusimano and I went through this, I think a few of our favorites were just the complex topics. We keep hearing like, oh, they're learning these really complex topics. They're engaging in algebra and they're able to adapt it to their needs and to their levels and show growth and see themselves learning and be proud of that. I know there was a couple you pointed out as well.
Yeah, we're always conscious of writing individualized plans for our students, and the program gives a variety of suggestions and it offers a variety of ways that we can continue to target our efforts. And, for teachers that have to craft curriculum and lesson plans, it is nice to have a program that helps with the crafting of these IEP documents as well.
Absolutely. The next one has student feedback. Our high school program decided they wanted to send out student surveys, knowing that we were coming to the meeting in April. They asked their students a few different questions. And then we had some pictures of students at different grade levels interacting with the curriculum. You can see a little bit of what a large group lesson might look like projected on the board on the picture on the right, and a little bit of what an individualized book may look like that a student could be working on at their particular level on the left. I really enjoyed the first one. I like learning different things. I'm learning about triangles. So we have some geometry happening. And then one student gave it 5 stars. It was just really exciting to read the student feedback. Some of them just said yes or no to the questions. And then some students added a little bit of commentary. So I wanted to include that. It's always exciting to hear what they like about it. A lot of the feedback was, I like that the directions and answers are read to me. I don't have to have a teacher come over and read it to me. I can just move on and do my work and have it read to me right on there. So that was really, I thought, really sweet. And then we did receive a little bit of parent feedback. These are just parents who either have reached out to us or they have said something to a teacher along the way and the teacher felt it was necessary to share with us. And we always appreciate hearing that because we know that parents are the biggest champions of their students and we like to know what they're thinking about what we're doing as well. So a lot of these comments focused around my student is reading, and I'm so excited that my student is reading. That was really incredible to read. Some parents even indicated the fact that time management skills have improved. A lot of that may have to do with maybe some of the positivity options of separate schedules for the students and all of those wonderful components that are embedded. So our purpose of coming up here today was we just wanted to thank you guys for supporting us in this endeavor and give you a little heads up on where we're at right now and how it's going. We do have to renew our license every year, so I know that's on the agenda later today, and we thought it just made sense to give you an update on how it's going before that has to be a consideration. So I think the next slide is just if you guys have any questions.
Are you going to be here later when we do this on the agenda to renew it? Okay, I'll ask a question then.
I do have one quick question. When you look at the overall special education program here at Anchor Bay, is there anything that we lack or we can do better for the program?
Oh, I think we're always encountering areas where we can make improvements. Staff have provided tremendous feedback about what's working, what is hindering the efforts, maybe in terms of technology. What could we do to improve access? Whether it's for whole group instruction, individualized, with students using their tech devices. So it is definitely a work in progress. And we've already started making considerations to have some of those improvements. But yes. Short answer is yes.
Other than renewing the license tonight, right? All right.
I echo your sentiment that it seems like there's a lot of technology embedded in this curriculum. I echo your sentiment that we don't want our kids on our computers 100% of the time, but it is an important component. Do we have a goal going forward of getting our special education rooms at North their own dedicated Chrome cards?
That is a great question. We actually have sent surveys out to our staff. We're wanting to make sure we know what forms of devices students are utilizing. What's nice about ULS is you can use different devices. You can use iPads, you can use Chromebooks. Each program is very individualized on what they prefer. So we have sort of started, now that we are in full year of implementation and we know how often it's being used, we've started asking our staff, okay, what form of devices do your students need? What do you have access to? What do you not have access to? So short answer to that one is yes, we will probably have to have further discussion about that, but we're wanting to make sure that we are tailoring it specific to each room.
Is there a timeline on that at all?
Great question.
I know that we have brought this up at directors meetings. We've had curriculum discussions. We've had committee meetings. So it is ongoing. Our hope is, leading into next year, we already have some improvements.
Our building administrators have been very supportive with the curriculum as well. So we often, if we hear of a concern, we'll go to them and ask, like, is there a cart that's available? Is there devices that are available? The tech department has been great of responding and coming out and testing our projectors and making sure everything's calibrated and appropriate to work. So props to you guys too. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but we're moving as quickly as we can because there are components of it where that tech use is crucial for assessment pieces especially.
Yeah, and just to jump in on that. So at the beginning of the year, the building principals at the middle school, they asked like their staff, what do you need? How often do you need it? Part of this is now this was a pilot program. So now we're asking for like kind of like formal approval to continue it. And then as part of that, then we'll have the resources to commit to it.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Any other questions?
I'll just say one additional thought. I think in addition to having something concrete and structured for our self-contained programs, having the ability to tie these lessons to standards has given us the opportunity to inform our gen ed staff as well about what we're doing and what we're working on to make, opportunities and then in the gen ed setting with these students more meaningful. The chasm isn't quite so large to go from one room now to another potentially. Some of the curriculum exposure is familiar. So I think that's been pretty impressive to us is informing other educators of what we're doing. So it is not so mysterious of what's going on in these rooms. How are we meeting the needs of our diverse learners? So I found that to be pretty remarkable too.
All right, great. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving down the agenda, the next item on the list is the Anchor Bay Community Foundation. Thank you very much. It's a great story. Okay, moving down the list, the next item is going to be bowling students recognition by the athletic supervisor. Great.
Thank you.
Mom, can we at least bring your daughter up for a picture? And from a board perspective, I do apologize for what you went through. And I do ask Mr. Jankowski for a full investigation. We should not be having this conversation tonight. We have a full-time athletic director. We have a full-time assistant athletic director. This should not be happening. So please, Mr. Jankowski, I'd like a full report for the entire board on what transpired. With that being said, can we please come up and have a picture of your daughter? Just gonna have a quick pause while we have a mic issue. Okay, next item on the agenda is going to be a student congress update.
Good evening, President Richards, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Jankowski. Today's Student Congress meeting was held at Anchor Bay High School, and our special guest was Mr. Jankowski. Mr. Jankowski was kind enough to stay for over an hour, answering all of our students' questions from snow days to what college he attended, and even more. The students were very inquisitive, and the meeting was both informational and very fun. Here are this month's building updates. At Lighthouse, the Smensel sale begins on April 27th, and they will be sold until they are all out. The cost is $2 each. And the fourth grade that won the Quarter Wars and will be receiving an extra recess and a special treat. The school raised over $900. At Lottie Elementary, the final vote is in for the school-wide Adopt an Animal, and the winner is a river otter. Today, there was an Earth Day sale, and all items were sold for $1 each. At Great Oaks, this week is Earth Day Spirit Week. Student council members are working on creating posters for staff appreciation for the first week of May. At McCants, grade level field trips have started. Third grade went to a farm. There will be a ceremony for fourth graders on June 4th. At Ashley Elementary, students are finishing the M-STEP testing, and the salmon that were hatched in Mrs. Samarick's class are scheduled to be released at Brandenburg Park on May 7th. At Naldrit, the yearbook sales will end on April 26th. The cost is $12 each, and order forms are available in the school office. There will be a ceremony for fourth grade students on June 4th to include a musical performance by the students. And on May 8th, the first grade students will be taking a field trip to the Metro Nature Center. At Middle School North, the sixth graders will be going to a Tiger game, I believe tomorrow, and the fifth graders have a trip planned to go to Brandenburg Park. At Middle School South, April 16th, students took the PSAT. April 30th, students are leaving for the annual trip to Washington, D.C. And at the high school, our juniors just finished their SAT and WIN testing, as well as the M-STEP. The sophomore class has earned a field day that will be held on May 1st during 4th and 5th hours. The students will be celebrating the staff during the first week of May for staff appreciation, and DECA will be attending ICDC in Atlanta. They leave tomorrow. That is all I have for you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much and enjoy your trip.
Can we back up a second? What, you said something about a river otter? Can you?
At Lottie Elementary.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm sorry.
Yeah, at Lottie Elementary, they are adopting an animal at the zoo and they're adopting a river otter. So I believe they're sponsoring part of the river otter.
Wonderful. Is one of the perks of being aboard that I get to pet the otter?
I mean, you're gonna have to ask Lottie, but I wouldn't be opposed to you petting the
Okay.
river otter.
Can you work on that for me, please?
I will do my very best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is superintendent's update.
Okay, Trevor is going to bring up my presentation. Basically, three aspects of the we're going to go over current bond work. We'll go over the next phase that we're asking you to approve. This is a carryover from last year, or last month, I should say, the fire suppression for South. And then we'll talk about, it's kind of part of my legislative update, is we have budget proposals from the state finally as of yesterday. So we'll walk through that. Next slide, please. So bond update. Right now we are starting, it's the beginning of the largest phase of the bond. Will be construction on 3 buildings, but by the time through the next 2 years, it'll be 8 buildings will have construction at some point in time. Next slide. So if you, after spring break, if you came back, you probably noticed construction fencing. This is Ashley. So that's in place. This area of the school will be where the additions are for the new classrooms. And again, the plan is to build the new classrooms. We'll shift students to the new classrooms, and then we'll work on the other parts of the building. Next slide. This is in the front of the building where they're getting ready. This will be the new media center area. And you can see, if you look in the back middle section there, that'll be the entrance from the school. So they're clearing out those classrooms. They're already clearing out some of the walls on the interior, and they're getting ready to dig for the foundation for that. And that'll be coming up here pretty quickly. Next slide. Naldret, kind of the same thing. They're getting prepared for construction there. So a lot of the construction fencing is going up. Next slide. And the students were excited when I went over there because they were all wanted to stay and watch as they were taking up the sidewalks and everything for that area. Next slide. And they were excited that it looked like this after they were done. Just for reference, what they're working on now is going to be in the middle there where the baseball field, that'll ultimately be a parking lot, and the bus loop, or actually the parent drop-off loop, because we'll separate that from where the buses are. But in the meantime, we'll put a temporary lot, because when we do the next phase of this project and they're adding the new media center, it'll come out into the parking lot. And so we'll lose some of the parking spaces. So they're getting ready to do the temporary one first, and then they'll close off the rest of it in the summer. Next slide. This is the old counseling area at South. You can see they've done demolition. They're actually starting the framing. What this will be is the new business classroom is in the back on the other side of there, and then there'll be a school store to the left. And then the classroom that I took the picture from will be a foreign language. And then next slide. And then this will also be a foreign language classrooms, because as we're moving our foreign language offerings down somewhat. So then out of this area, you can see if you have ever been in counseling there, it was very compartmentalized, had fairly low ceilings. You can see kind of how much space was actually there once they got in and did the demolition. Next slide. This is actually will be the new office area. And basically it's the wing that kind of sticks out between the two parking lots. And now what they're doing is they're removing all of the walls that need to be removed. And there's steel that's going to go in that'll extend out for the awning on the front that we're anticipating to arrive any day here. Next slide. They're also patching in where there were windows before into the hallway that used to exist there. So they're patching in that as well. And just in preparation, they'll end up pouring the new footings and filling in the flooring as well before they end up putting the new partitions in. Next slide. Any questions on where we're at with the construction? Okay. It will go pretty quick with the demolition that should be done. What we can do, we'll do during school and then around the school day. And then once school gets out, in the 2 weeks right after school gets out, most of the demolition will be complete at that point. So the next phase and what we're asking for approval, this will be on the agenda later, is the bond up, the fire suppression approval for South. Next slide. What you see here is basically, this is everything that we've done that's been approved kind of, and I'll walk you through all of these. So we get to this April award, and it'll highlight each section. So we'll just kind of spell that out. Next slide. So again, when we first did the initial bond and we set a budget for it, for all of the work that we wanted to complete, the anticipated budget was $47,639,320. So that was from our work list. Next slide. So then the January award, we did a major portion of that. That was 34 million, but we were under where we were at. And there were some things that we were looking at that were alternates that we received budgets for in order to, and that was shared at the January meeting, that then we went out and we got bids and so on in order to kind of move forward with those, such as additional classrooms at Ashley and Naldred. And then now this is the South portion of it. So next slide. So in March, we had, the board had approved 9.3 million, and that was those additional classrooms. And at that point, we knew that we were still waiting on to get bids from our vendors for the fire suppression system. So that's next slide. So if you look at the next slide here, so this is fire suppression, but one thing that came up was in December, we had asked as part of the energy bond to, the board approved for lighting to be done. And then as we talk to the contractors, the issue becomes kind of coordinating between those contractors. Because if we have one whole company doing the ceilings and another one installing all the piping that has to go through the main hallways, then are we going to be able to coordinate that? Because if they can't get within like a few days of each other, it's really going to hurt our timeline. So what we are proposing here is basically that Barton Mallow will pick up the lighting portion. So we're just going to take that from the energy bond, put that into the construction bond so that they can coordinate both, and that'll keep the timeline. And they'll be able to handle that. So the board had approved the lighting. We're just asking now for that to be part of this package. To have that. So again, the amount that we're asking will be 2.1 million. Still puts us overall, we're still under overall budget for the project that you'll see on the next slide, please. So this is the April award that we're asking. We will see some savings through other things because that still has to be determined, because the codes had changed from the time that we began the planning to, for fire suppression now, we were going to have to add all these doors in the hallway. So instead of having an open hallway, you'd have to have something, basically we'd have to add 6 sets of double doors throughout the hallway. To that, we'll now be able, if this is approved, we can pull that out as savings. And that'll go, but we don't have that totally calculated yet. That'll come as we get approval from the state for the plans. Next slide. So overall, if you look at everything, we anticipated that we'd have 47.6 million for the entire project. We've been able to do that. Now we can add fire suppression for South. We can add those additional classrooms and collaboration spaces, and we'll still came in at 46.1 million, and we'll still have about $1.5 million of savings and have fire suppression, which for South will really help us in the long run as we have future as we make future changes, because we won't have to worry about all those partitions and everything. Questions on this?
The transfer of the lighting to Bart Mallow, did that cost us any money?
No. Well, we're just moving roughly, it's the same amount that's just over there, and we'll probably see a savings.
Do they have a customer loyalty program? Because we could really use one.
Well, they've been doing well, keeping us under budget. So that's what our goal is. And it's trying to balance on schedule and under budget. Okay. Next slide. Okay, state budget. It's always an adventure. We'll kind of give a quick history of the budget and how things work and where we're at and why things are the way they are, and then what the proposal is. So next slide. So this is a big year for Michigan because you have the election coming up. All 148 legislative seats are up, plus the governor, secretary of state, attorney general, the Senate, all congressional seats, and you have to have it every so many years, the Constitutional Convention ballot question. So there's definitely, compared to last year where they didn't approve the budget until middle of October, they have incentive to try and get this done. Typically, the goal is to get it done by July 1st. Then they will go on break, basically, they call it. And it's really their campaigning for all these positions. So nobody will be around until they'll have like 5 days of session just in case anything pops up until after the election. And then there'll be lame duck, if there's anything in lame duck, that is, because typically if you have split control, then there's no incentive. It depends on how the election comes out. All right. If either one goes to, if it's still split or either one's taking full control, then they won't really do much of anything because they'll just wait until the session ends and the new group comes in, and then they'll kind of, there's no incentive for them to agree to anything. So we're hoping that means the budget will be on schedule. But if it's not, then we're going to be in a world of hurt because they don't plan on coming back soon. Okay, next slide. So in a normal budget year, which we haven't seen many of these lately, January kicks off the budget season with what's called the CREC. It's the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference. So they say, okay, we anticipated getting this amount of money. All three branches get together and say, hey, this is what we're getting. Then the governor puts out her proposal, and then typically very shortly after that, we'll get the House and Senate. Again, we didn't get that until yesterday. Now everything's rolled out. So we'll go through those in a second. Then they kind of come out with a baseline budget based off of the January CREC. Then they do another one, which is the final one before the budget in May. It's always the second Friday in May. And they'll get together and say, here's the numbers since January. And this is what we think. And then now depending on how that goes, if there's more funding or less funding, they'll sharpen the budget based off of that. They'll negotiate. It'll typically, in a normal year, it'll go through budget negotiations. What has happened over the last few years is it's only been about 6 people to get in a room. And it's roughly 2 from the Senate, 2 from the House, 2 from the governors that really have a say. And then voila, they come out with a budget. And the goal is to have the budget complete. They have not hit the July 1st one in that'll be 7, 8 years now. And but there's hope this year. Next slide. So just to review the governor's proposal, her budget was $88.1 billion, and this is the general fund and school aid fund. We'll get into that in a second. With a $1.8 billion shortfall that she was planning to cover through $800 million in new revenue. Part of that were sin taxes, because it's kind of what they did last year with the marijuana tax, but it would be on gambling, it would be on various different things, alcohol, gambling, smoking, things like that. Then $400 million from the state reserves, and then they would transfer basically 561. Really, it's a shell game in that instead of normally the general fund would pay for the college funding, but the general fund wouldn't do it. They would pull it out of the school aid fund. which is really a de facto transfer from the school aid fund to the general fund. So that was her budget, and she'd make a bunch of other small cuts, like they have. It was something like 3,000 positions that they haven't been able to fill. They would just eliminate those because they're in the budget, but then they never fill them. So they would take that as savings, among other things. Next slide. So why the shortfall? One, general fund revenues are falling. A lot of that we'll kind of get into. But they're basically, we have expenses that are going up: Medicaid, food stamps, cost increases that you normally have through inflation, which has been running higher for the last few years and is starting to tick up again a little bit. Next slide. So then part of this is the federal budget. So there's the one big beautiful bill that was passed, and part of that is it takes effect after the upcoming federal election. $450 million would come out of Medicaid. And then there's also cuts to SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Program, and other rule changes that basically came through all of that, that would add another $100 million on top of that. So that kind of went into that thing, plus your cost increases. Next slide. So basically, your general fund revenues are falling while expenditures are increasing, and Medicaid is really Michigan's largest single expenditure. People are probably not aware, and this is most states. In Michigan, 25%, so 1 out of 4 people are on Medicaid. So there's concern from both sides of the aisle. Basically, what are we going to do? We're going to pay for this one way or another. How do we kind of come up with the shortfall of all of these people could be moved off of that? And it has residual effects. So many of our title programs, Title I, Title II, at-risk funding and all that comes as an offshoot of Medicaid funding, because the number one way 85% of the students that qualify as at risk for the additional funding qualify through Medicaid. Okay. So they see all of these, and so they're just calculating the top line of this is what it's going to cost, because they really can't figure out what the ripple effects will be yet. Next slide. So this is kind of an overview. If you look, so it's back to 23, 24, and then where we think we'll be based off. This is off of the January crack. So if you look at the school aid fund, that has been going up. The general fund, you can see, has been in decline. And so how are they going to handle that? We'll look at the other proposals. Next slide. So just so you can see, if you were just to take the school aid fund and all that, so the blue is what goes to schools. Remember, if you remember back in 1994 when they did this plan, the whole promise was this should be one big blue circle. All K-12 funding would come out of the school aid fund. Community colleges and universities were taken out of the general fund entirely. In fact, back at that time, not only, because they always say they'll hold harmless districts, not only did all of it come out of the school aid fund, but the general fund contributed about $63 million to the school aid fund in order to keep districts whole. And then slowly that is now kind of eroded, and it's really accelerated over the last few years. Next slide. So you can see this is last year's budget. So you see that gray sliver has gotten larger. And then next slide. And you can see it's going to go up by about a third again in the proposed budget right now from the governor. Next slide. And then part of that is what they've been kind of using to justify this. And we went over this in depth. I think it was last fall, or it might have been last spring, where we talked about how are they doing this through, there was the healthcare funding, if you remember. Each individual who works in the school district is paying 3% towards it. That became fully funded. In fact, it's about 140% funded now. So they don't have to take the 3%. That was the big contention with the budget last year, was they eliminated that. So people didn't have to contribute that. But they still want the money coming in so then they can shift it over through that. So what they do is they move that cost onto the district. And so we cover 2.8% of that. And that's really to pay down retirement debt, which is already overfunded on what's called OPEB. It's the other post-employment benefits, healthcare, vision, dental for retirees. Next slide. So as you can see, this goes all the way back to 2009. And if you look at it, the third column there, you can see now that it's basically just over $1,900 per student goes to the universities and the community college funding. So if they were still in the same funding formula, for us, that would be just about $11 million that we would have additionally, but that's now being shifted to the universities. Next slide. So the House came out, basically they're going to match the foundation allowance increase, which is good for us because we use that to start budgeting, and you'll see the Senate does the same thing. So everybody's in agreement. That at least will help us get our budget, because last year, as you know, by law, we have to have our budget set by June 30th. And we didn't know what we were going to get from the state until October. Interestingly, the House is not doing weighted funding. Their proposal is basically they're just going to do across the board increase for at-risk and English language learners. And then basically everything would be proportional to student counts. Then they want to do approved math curriculum like they did with reading. So they would give 5 approved curriculums. We'd have to pick one. Same thing with the literacy. We received this grant, and that was approved a couple months ago by the board, and we just received all the things for the literacy. But a lot of districts didn't, because they didn't put the grant out until the last 10 days of the budget cycle. And so now they want to give some districts, because they put it in this year's budget, you have to do it or you'd lose 5% of your funding. And districts were like, well, we didn't put in for the grant because there was only 10 days and we didn't know. So putting that back in. Also, STEM curricula that they're looking at as well. And then for letters training, which is also literacy training, this would be mandated. We'll get into that a little bit. Next slide. They also this is a continuation of the high impact tutoring for at-risk districts. There's also, they want to make a deposit, whereas the governor was taking money from the budget stabilization, they want to put money into it to build that rainy day fund. And then the big question is 31AA, which you remember there was all of that going back and forth. So the governor has the same language in the budget, her proposal, as last year. This would actually tighten the definition of a mass casualty event, where it would be an intentional act that results in the fatality of 3 or more serious injuries. And basically, it would allow individuals to maintain privilege, which is a constitutional right, just not the institution itself, which is a much better approach. Then it would eliminate the grow your own. We have several people that are in this, where we have parapros. If they want to go back into education, we work with the state so they can get $10,000 towards their degree. And interestingly, they're maintaining the free meals, the declining enrollment, and transportation funding at current levels, which we receive all of those already. Next slide. They also are putting in $40 million for private tutoring for at-risk students in grade bands, so grades 4 through 6, and the district would reimburse the parents. $30 million for CTE for non-resident students and transportation costs. This is basically a counter to certain counties. Macomb doesn't have this, but other counties have a countywide CTE millage. And so that becomes a problem, because if you want to do schools of choice across county lines, the money doesn't follow you. And if the money doesn't follow you, those students, if they want to be in a CTE program, cannot participate because they're not getting that. So this would help solve that problem. Then $350,000 for an accountability system to go back to letter grades, to publish each district's promotion retention policy, and then publish the number of students who are not proficient but promoted to 4th grade. Next slide. They also have $1 million for MD to secure a vendor for teacher and student growth reports. the more than likely this is going to be EVAS, which we've used for a few years ago, but then 2 years ago they got rid of it because they didn't want a vendor bill. So they wiped out all the vendor bills. And then last year they didn't bring it back because the budget was late. And then they added some vendor bills, and like letters would be considered a vendor bill. You can only go to one provider. And we'll get into that a little bit more. They'd also put penalties in of 22B. That's your discretionary funding. It's a separate account instead of your overall foundation allowance for DEI programs, transgender girls and girl sports, multi-stall, unisex bathrooms, and then you'd have to notify parents of student request pronoun changes. And it would maintain the 164K requirements. That's part of retirement and things like that, and adds all students must now take the presidential fitness test. Next slide. So this is the Senate side of it. Again, like I mentioned, they're putting in a $250 foundation allowance increase. They are keeping a weighted increase, and they're increasing the amount for that, which is the 25% increase over current year funding. They're actually enhancing, this is the 22B, which is discretionary funding, where basically they want to, the House kind of tried to do this last year when they said, we're going to do $12,000. We're just going to get rid of all the categoricals, put them in one amount. So they're making a move towards that as well. So there is some agreement between the House and Senate on that. Instead of doing the declining enrollment funding, they would basically move your pupil count to a 3-year running average, which would equate to the same thing. Then they're adding it's $60 million to reimburse students for dual enrollment, and then $300 million for 31AA, which we talked about. This one would actually eliminate all of the privilege waivers. And then it would change the mass casualty, where the House said it was 3 fatalities. This would be targeted violence with at least 1 fatality. Then the state could come in and investigate. Next slide. They would actually increase from $125 million to $150 million of transportation funding. They would include another, this is a 27L, which you're going to be asked to approve the agreements we have with the unions for bonuses. That would be $150 million. And one thing that they made a mistake, because the last time it was subject to retirement holdings, which again, we've talked about that before, kind of eats into that bonus amount. And then this one actually repeals the 164K line item. And then also keeps free meals, literacy coaches, and then it would also freeze retirement rates, because one thing they did last year, like I mentioned, they moved those retirement costs over. So they aren't going to undo what they did. They're just going to keep it the same going forward, which helps to some extent. Next slide. Then they also have their approach for accountability of they're right now it's just going to come up with the discussion's really around what accountability things, what weighted funding, what both sides kind of talk about the culture war items of, like we talked about with sex education will be one, things like that. So that's what they're all holding out for in the boilerplate language. And then the federal tax credit opt-in, which Michigan has not opted in yet. That the governor has the opportunity to do that, but that'll probably factor into this as well. The other big issue is going to be the drawdown from reserve funds. Okay. So are they going to put more money into the savings, or are they going to take it out? And then the higher ed costs, that's going to be, the House wants to move less money than the governor out of the school aid fund for colleges. But there's also on the table for basically all three are property tax cuts, some of which would be the House proposal was to eliminate the $6 million property tax that is for schools. The governor has one, in fact, I think I have it on the next slide. Next slide. So letter training, that's another bill that's up there. As you can see, the House, the governor is on letters, Senate's on letters. The House is like, no, it'll have to be some training, because it doesn't necessarily have to be letters. Letters is like a 28-day program. They don't know if they have enough trainers in order to do all of it and get everybody through. They're still working on changes. They're looking at what flexibility, what staff. My guess is if I had to predict, it's going to be like K2 because they originally wanted to do K8. There's just not enough people to get it done in the time that they want. Then teacher prep programs, they want to work on that because that's the whole pushback that we've had is if you want to get this done with everybody, put it in the college and have everybody get it when they get their degree. And then they'll have it as they go forward. And then as time moves on, you'll have everybody there instead of trying to force this into compliance right away when you know you don't have the people to provide the training. Next slide. So property taxes, this is where it's at. So to get rid of the school education tax, that's about 2.7 billion. 18 mil non-homestead is another one. They haven't really talked about that. That's the one that you have to move up. You have to have people vote on. It's non-homestead, so it's not the people who live in your district. It's businesses or people who have second homes in your district. Personal property taxes as well. They're also looking to do something with a pop-up mechanism because right now, if you stay in your house, the property taxes can only go up by 5% max or whatever inflation is. But when you sell it, it pops up to market value, which for some people, it could triple your property taxes. And they feel that a lot of that is keeping people from moving and people from buying homes because you look at it and you're like, hey, the property taxes are $5,000 or something. Then you move in and all of a sudden it's 15,000 because the pop-up tax hits. So they're looking at all of that for elimination. The Gov, her plan was to do a tax credit for seniors only. That would be about 90 million. The Senate plan is to expand on the governor's plan, but open it up for more seniors at 300 million. Next slide. Oh, just go back one. The House, which got cut off here, is basically they want to exchange the property tax for a sales tax on services, which I think it was 2008 they did the sales tax on service, and then they repealed it 3 months later. So there's a lot of agreement as you see on the basic funding. So the 250, we can budget on that. Everything else still has yet to be seen, and it's the costs. Like, what costs are they going to put in? Are they going to increase retirement costs? Are they going to increase everything else? But there's hope. They have 10 weeks in order to get this done. Questions on this? I know it's a lot, but we'll be talking about this probably for the next 2 months at least.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what is the presidential fitness test? And we have to conduct this to get grant money for, is that what
Well, this would actually there'd be some penalty for that, which they didn't spell out in their thing. Presidential fitness, if you remember back in the day, they used to have originally started, I think it was in the late 70s, and then there were certain things you had to do, sit-ups and run a mile and all that stuff, and then and you get a certificate. And they ended it at the federal thing somewhat. But now they want to be able to bring that back because, like, you might remember there's commercials with it was Bruce Jenner originally, and then it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and so on that were the head of it as they went through.
Okay, and so this is something that the House is proposing that if we do or if we don't do, we get
If you don't do, you'd get penalized.
don't do if we get penalized.
Yeah.
So is this something that we can support as a district?
You do it in your gym class. It's not like a huge thing. It depends. As they say, it's always the devil's in the details. What do we have to do? If a kid doesn't hit certain marks, what do we need to do? Are they going to keep a database on the kids and how they scored and all that stuff? That's when we would have to really make a decision because I don't know if parents necessarily want that. Hey, my kid can't do 15 pull-ups in, 5 minutes. So they're going to put it in a database and,
Right. Yeah, I can't do 15 pull-ups either. So
Yeah.
that's so bad.
Yeah. So we just have to see. It's right now, these are all concepts. And I'll tell you, 2/3 of those things will end up being tossed aside.
Okay. Now what about 25 million for additional transportation funding that's proposed by the Senate? How, I guess, in a chance from like 1 to 10 of that being implemented, the final budget, because that I believe would position us pretty well.
Yeah, that would, as a larger, district square miles wide, and that would help us because what they've done is like when they first put it in at 125 million, Our buses go a lot further. So like there's a district at the south end, same number of students, 4 square miles. Their buses do not go what ours do at a 36 square mile district. And because of that, this is meant to be an offset for that to equal the playing field. So the first year they did this, they told us at the beginning of the year, hey, we put this in, you will get 760,000. Okay. Went through, that's what we put in the budget. We're supposed to see that. That's what they gave to us. And then it was the budget closes June 30th. And you might recall this. And then it was about, I don't know, third week of July. And they're like, hey, we didn't budget enough for this. So we're going to take, I think it was $68,000 back, which the year's over. The budget, we were already going through the audit at that point. So then you have to do something with the next year's budget. That's happened every year. At least this would probably, I think that's what this is meant to resolve, is the fact that they're clawing back money after the budget year ends.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions?
I had a question. If you could clarify, you said we receive all three free meals, declining enrollment, and transportation. Can you clarify declining enrollment?
Declining enrollment is basically we've talked about quite a bit, especially when we did strategic planning. The state has 1.4 million kids in school. That is the lowest since 1940. Just for, and this is all schools. This isn't just, it's not like they're going to private schools. There's just birth rates have dropped. And so the problem is you don't know that until your count days. So you do your budget and then they come in and then all of a sudden you have to cut. And it's never like, hey, 30 kids from one grade are back, so we can just basically cut one section. It's 2 kids from each class across the entire district. And so you have to run those programs. So they put that in order to offset that, especially for districts where they're seeing 10 or 15% declines in a year.
Mr. Jankowski, I have a question, more or less around the bond. During the construction at the high school, we allowed the CTE students to walk around. We're going to do the same at South.
Yeah, they've been walking through the classes that we've been using, the makerspace kids and so on, and the engineering, the bridge building kids and so on have been going through there.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on down the agenda. The next item is hearing of the public. Those who wish to address the board on agenda items must complete a brief request stating their name, address, and the subject of their comments. Remarks about specific employees should be directed to them personally and not included in the public forum. Administration will follow up with the concerns within 48 hours of the board meeting. The first parent that has requested to speak is Christina Ross.
Good evening. I would consider myself somewhat of a regular at these meetings, someone who prides myself on being aware of policy and practice that affect not only my daughter Raylan, who is in kindergarten and has autism, but many other students and families in this district as well. So it comes as a huge surprise to me that I am here speaking about a fundamental issue regarding the rights of students with disabilities that I have only recently discovered, yet is likely the issue has likely been to the one which has most affected Ray and frankly overall the educational culture as in our district. This is the issue of deciding educational placement for students with disabilities in what is called the least restrictive environment, where the general education environment with a full range of supplementary supports and services is the very first placement an IEP team must consider for a child who is eligible to receive special education services. I am here with some friends to share what, through a chance connection with a volunteer advocate from outside of the state, we have learned over the past 2 months. If understanding this basic provision in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is new to us as parents with children with disabilities, it is likely also new to you school board members. First, it is important to understand that under federal law, the least restrictive environment, or LRE, determination starts at the age of 3. So we are talking preschool here. As I mentioned, the general education environment with a full range of supplementary supports and services must be considered as the student's placement before considering placing the child in a more restrictive environment, such as a self-contained special education class. Supplementary supports and services are wide-ranging and include pull-out to resource room, push-in supports to a regular classroom from a special education teacher, and a one-on-one para in support in a regular kindergarten class. Did you know that students with disabilities are not required to keep up with grade level learning standards? They may, if necessary, receive modifications to the curriculum in the general education setting in accordance to the least restrictive environment provision. In fact, a perfect example of what I'm referring to by modifications is the unique learning curriculum that was presented earlier. This system can also be utilized in regular classrooms like Frank referenced. The LRE is considered at least annually for each student with an IEP. What is crucial to understand is that the law says an IEP meeting for a child must include not less than one regular education teacher of such child if the child is or may be participating in a regular education environment. When Anchor Bay does not invite a regular education teacher to an IEP meeting, the district is essentially declaring ahead of the meeting that there will be no possibility that the child will participate in a regular education environment. So for my daughter and many others who have never had a general education at any IEP meeting, we now understand that their segregated placement has been predetermined, which is a violation of their educational rights and legal IEP process. And that if the proper supplementary supports had ever been considered, they could have and should have been learning alongside their typically developing peers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next parent, Julia Coker.
Hello, I am Julia Coker, and I am the mother of two amazing sons, the older one being Wyatt, who is in kindergarten at our neighborhood zone school. Like Tina's daughter, there has never been a general education teacher invited to any of Wyatt's IEP meetings for the past 3 years since he was found eligible for special education services. I never thought anything of it. It was only because a volunteer advocate recently took a look at Wyatt's preschool to kindergarten IEP and thought there must be a clerical mistake because the box for a general education teacher being at the annual IEP meeting wasn't checked off. My eyes began to open to a serious problem in Anchor Bay. We called an IEP meeting in late February, and soon there were questions that went unanswered by the school district about whether there had ever been a general education teacher at any of Wyatt's IEP meetings. The advocate asked to see Wyatt's preschool IEPs and saw that the general education teacher box had never been checked, meaning that there was never a general education teacher even invited to a single one of his meetings. This is when the advocate asked if we knew other parents whose kids had IEPs so she could check if Wyatt's case was just a bizarre one-off case. She had never encountered in the hundreds of IEP meetings she has attended in the multitude of states around this country a general education teacher not invited to an annual review meeting for an IEP where it is a requirement to first consider placement in the general education environment with supplementary supports and services. I asked several friends about this, and here's what we figured out. Every single one of us had never had an IEP with a gen ed teacher for preschool, even if it was a child with an IEP for a mild physical disability. The advocate looked up some data report on the Michigan Department of Education website that Anchor Bay is required to send to the state and saw that not only had our district not met any of its inclusion targets, but that preschool inclusion was reported as 0%. 0%. So even though there is a law that says the general education preschool environment with supports like a one-on-one aid is what the IEP team must first consider, not one IEP team decided on this placement according to the latest data report submitted from the 2023-2024 school year. We parents then learned about predetermination. This is where an educational placement is determined by the district before an IEP meeting has taken place. So the absence of a general education teacher means before the IEP team ever meets, the school district is officially signaling that there is no possibility a child will have any time in the general education setting. Cindy is going to talk about what happens after preschool to all these students with IEPs who have spent no time learning alongside their typically developing peers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next parent, Cindy Goring.
Hello, I'm Cindy Goring, and like Julia, I have two amazing sons. Both boys had been found eligible for special education services in this district, and both started with IEPs in preschool. Like Raylan and Wyatt, there was never a general education teacher for either Jason, who is now 8, or Jax, who's now 6, when it came to preschool educational placement. So both boys attended the segregated special education preschools, and we thought, just like Raylan and Wyatt's parents, that this is where kids with IEPs go so they can get their IEP programming. Here's where, now looking back, things are different for our boys. Jason went from preschool to kindergarten 3 years ago and continued in a segregated classroom for what is labeled CI, which stands for cognitively impaired. This is the same class that Ray and Wyatt currently attend, and like them, Jason did not have a general education teacher invited to attend the preschool to kindergarten annual IEP meeting that determined his educational placement for kindergarten. But our son Jax did. He had one invited to his kindergarten placement meeting, and he ended up at our neighborhood school where there is no CI program, and now he doesn't even have an IEP. He entered preschool with an IEP for a mild physical disability, and he's now in a regular kindergarten class. So to think about what Julia was talking about, the predetermination. Jax, who ended up in a regular kindergarten at his own school, had general education teacher at his kindergarten placement IEP meeting. And Jason, like Ray and Wyatt, didn't. And they were all placed in a self-contained special education program for kindergarten. So could Ray, Wyatt, Jason, and Jax attended a regular preschool program with a full range of supports and services like one-on-one aid, OT, PT, speech, push-in? Kids like them all around the nation do, where districts are following the basics of IDEA law regarding the least restrictive environment. And as Tina had mentioned about modifications, the IDEA law states the following: a child with a disability is not removed from education in age-appropriate regular classrooms solely because of needed modifications in the general education curriculum. Lawful inclusion affects kids without disabilities just as much as kids with disabilities. Outcomes like higher test scores, improved problem solving, and greater empathy all improve or are the same when students with disabilities are properly supported in the general education setting. That's why the law is the way it is, because decades of research prove that everyone benefits when supports are brought into general education classes at students' neighborhood zone schools. Next, my friend Tara will be talking about how the systemic non-compliance through early predetermined educational placement decisions have hurt all of our children, and how we can work together to change the course of our entrenched system, which has for years been stuck unnecessarily segregating students with disabilities. It's time for change. Thank you.
Thank you. The next parent, and I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly, Tara Cunningham.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to share our collective concerns. I'm here tonight to add my voice and newfound knowledge to provide more information to you regarding the systemic failings of our district and how we can work together to uphold all of our children's educational rights. As Cindy said, unnecessary segregation affects not only students with disabilities, but also the students without disabilities in our entire community. My son Maverick is slated to enter the self-contained supportive kindergarten program this fall after being in segregated preschool, just like all the other kids you have heard about. At his IEP meeting in March, there was no general education teacher, even though the IEP says that the IEP team considered the option of, and I quote, in the fall, general education kindergarten with resource room support. With no general education teacher even invited to attend the meeting, it is actually not possible to consider the least restrictive environment of a regular classroom with a supplementary service like pull out to resource. So again, there's a clear example of predetermination where the district, by not inviting a general education teacher, was set in its decision to place Maverick in a self-contained classroom away from his neighborhood school instead of what the law requires, which is the first consideration to bring the supports and services he needs into his classroom at his neighborhood zone school. It turns out that I and we all signed our kids' inclusive rights away at the initial IEP meeting when we agreed that the only option we were even given was a segregated preschool program. We want to offer a solution to turn our district around. We believe that there should be a special education task force established to include parents, teachers, and administrators in our district to explore and address the issue we have raised, along with several other major concerns involving non-compliance of IDEA and ADA in our district. There are organizations that partner with school districts to transform them from being legally non-compliant to legally inclusive. We believe that prioritizing this kind of approach would be a good start to regaining the trust of parents like us in transforming Anchor Bay into a model inclusive school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are recurring nature and are voted on as a single item. Any board member may request an item be removed without a vote of the board, and it will be discussed and voted upon individually. I believe the consent agenda was in your board packet. On the consent agenda, we're going to talk, or I'm sorry, on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes, personnel report, financial report, and bills payable. I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
The board? All right. We have a motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Covert. Any comments, questions, or concerns? No? Then call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
and Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Right. Moving on to new business. The first item on new business is the Unique Learning System, MICI curriculum renewal. Last year, the Board of Education approved the purchase of the Unique Learning System curriculum. ULS is an evidence-based curriculum to support students in alignment to the Michigan Common Core Essential Element Standards, designed to support instruction within mild congenitally impaired classroom programs. The ULS curriculum has been an effective additional to our anchor-based staff contained MICI programs based on the successful implementation of ULS during the 2025-26 school year. Staff input and student progress and special education department would like to propose a renewal of the ULS curriculum for the 26-27 school year. The department feels confident that the department feels confident that our special needs population will continue to benefit from ULS due to the level of support and curricular resources this program provides. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the renewal of the MICI curriculum, Unique Learning, as presented. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Powers, supported by Ms. Knox. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
The only question I had on the quote has to do with the number of licenses that we're purchasing, and making sure that that's sufficient to cover all of our needs. Is that all the licenses we could possibly need, or would we benefit from purchasing additional licenses?
That is license, that's why they're on. And then the additional two that start on May, that's the transition. That's why the numbers are off now. And the simple stick has an additional did previously include our district.
right. Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Miss Berkmeyer, I'm sorry, Miss Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Miss Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Next item on new business is the approval of the 27L compensation. Enclosed is the offer related to 27A compensation. All bargaining units have agreed to the compensation as presented. Administration is working to get final signatures on the tentative agreements for all groups. The TA will be shared with the board in advance of the board meeting. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the 27L compensation tentative agreement as presented. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
So move. Support.
Right, motion by Mr. Powers, supported by Mr. Covert. Any comments, questions, concerns?
On the signing page, there's the one missing.
I was about to ask that too.
We have verbal agreement that they're finally get their national group now. If this man is the state one, we have to get the
National, okay. Just for clarification for anyone watching, it's the school age childcare employees is missing, and that's because we have to go to a national level because the local has, or the state level has disbanded. So that is the answer to our question.
All right, any other questions, comments? No? All right, call the roll, please.
Okay. Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Miss Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Miss Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, and motion passes. Thank you all.
I know a lot of work went into that, so thank you, everyone. All right, next item is going to be field trips. The first field trip I have in front of me is the boys basketball Cedar Point trip. The boys basketball will be traveling to Cedar Point for a shootout camp June 8th and 9th, 2026, with 26 students and 4 chaperones. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the boys basketball Cedar Point trip June 8th and 9th, 2026, with 26 students and 4 chaperones. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Covert, supported by Mrs. Knox. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Okay. Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Miss Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Miss Berkmeyer. Motion passes.
All right, moving on to the next field trip is going to be boys basketball 2026 championship team camp. Looks like they're doing a lot of traveling. Boys basketball, we're traveling to Albion College June 12th and 14th, 2026 with 26 students. That's both JV and varsity, with 3 chaperones for the 2026 championship team camp. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve travel to Albion. All right, thank you. Albion College for the boys basketball 2026 championship team camp, June 12th through the 14th, with 26 students and 3 chaperones. I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
All right. Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Colbert. Any comments, questions, suggestions?
Yes, I may have missed it when you read it, or maybe it wasn't in there. Boys basketball, is this varsity, JV? Is this like everybody or? Okay, varsity and JV. All right, thank you.
There's 26 students for both JV and varsity teams included. Okay.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
All right, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
and Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on. Next field trip is DECA, Michigan, OTSO Officer Summit. The workshop for Vivian Jane's role at Michigan DECA State President-elect in Dearborn, May 16th through the 18th, 2026. The Michigan DECA rep will chaperone. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the workshop for Vivian, May 16th through the 18th in Dearborn. I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, Powers?
Hard to see.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good idea. Wave a flag.
Yeah, yeah. We have to separate you
We'll
two.
have a different tone of pitch. in the bodies here.
Yeah. All right. Motion by Mr. Powers, support by Ms. Knox. Any comments, questions, or suggestions? Concerns?
One quick comment, and I know we've had the same issue in the past, where we've had one chaperone and one student. And not implying that there's anything wrong with that individual chaperone, but I think we've always coupled them with two individual chaperones in case any accusations are made. There's a second person to sort of confirm or deny those accusations.
Yeah, so this is actually old. And remember last month, Yvonne is president, so there's actually the DECA, he's actually going there, and it's the DECA team leadership that's going, so there will be more, it's just going to be, it's not a district employee, it's, he signed up for it, basically, the DECA people in chaperone.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
there will be a group of students, so there's a whole, he's the president, vice president, treasurer, all that. And then you will probably see several of these over the next year, just if you remember, his brother went through the same thing, and so it's part of being the president.
Understood.
Also, I think, to your point, when we instituted kind of feeling that we should send 2 adults, it was more for overnight. I believe this one's in Dearborn. It is, okay.
That's Vivon. Vivon. Right. All right. Any other comments, questions? All right, call the roll, please.
All right, Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
and Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next field trip. The NRA show, 4 students with 1 chaperone would like to attend the National Restaurant Association show on May 16th through the 18th, 2026 in Chicago, Illinois. The Board of Education is recommended the Board of Education approve the store manager class to attend the National Restaurant Association show May 16th through the 18th in Chicago, Illinois. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Covert.
I was watching that time too.
Yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns? I believe looking at this too, Mr. Yono is going to Chicago the same week as Dearborn, or same weekend as Dearborn, so that may have also changed some chaperoning too. So. All right, call the roll, please.
Okay, Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli is a yes, Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
and Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Fantastic. All right, moving on, award recommendations. Award recommendations, middle school South fire suppression. Administration is asking for approval of the award recommendation in the amount of $2,160,503. This includes the fire suppression for middle school South, as well as a contingency for Setch. Additionally, the lighting in the ceiling below the areas of the fire suppression will be replaced by Barton Malo. and are included in the award. The lighting was initially included in the energy bond, but in the interest of completing the project prior start of school, we're asking Barton Malo to replace the lighting rather than Centrix. The money freed up in the energy bond will be used to perform other projects with Centrix. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the award. Recommendation in the amount of $2,160,503. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sunnyberger, supported by Mr. Powers. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
Do we have any projects in mind for Centrix to complete?
Yeah, there'll be additional
There's some
things
stuff, okay.
as it goes forward. Yes.
We brought this up in the finance committee meeting, but I just want to say it publicly on the record. When Centrix does these things for the energy bond, they guarantee the efficiency savings of the project. We're not losing any of that guarantee by sourcing this through Barton Mallow instead of Centrix, correct?
No, it'll kind of prorate that for just the hallway lighting, but with the lighting, that's the largest savings that we'll probably get because it's still going to LED.
Right, okay.
All right. Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
All right. Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli, yes. Mr. Richards.
Yes.
Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Covert.
Yes.
And Ms. Burkmeyer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. The last award recommendation is furniture for Ashley Naldrit Middle School South. The bond team recommends awarding a contract to NBS Commercial Interiors in the amount of $425,329.73 for the purchase of select furniture at Ashley Naldrit and Middle School South. It is recommended that the Board of Education award NBS Commercial Interiors the contract to provide and install furniture as stated in specifications, the amount of $425,329.73 as presented. I would like to entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Support. All right, motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Sunnyberger. Any comments, questions?
Are these funds coming from the bond?
Yes, this is
Okay,
fine.
it's usually stipulated, so that's why I asked. Thank you.
Could you go over with us the process for, I assume we're getting rid of the old furniture. Obviously, we don't just dispose of this. We try to retain as much money as we can from ski.
Yeah, depending on the state of the furniture and so on, we will try and do that, or we'll put it on the public auction site and see if anybody. Typically, you'll sell it in lots because I mean you can sell like old desks. If anybody bids on it, you're getting like $10 for like a classroom of desks, especially the age that these will be. So if it's just not presentable or anything like that, then the last resort is we will end up just pitching them, and if we can't get any funds from.
Right, and that's after obviously a very extensive trying to capitalize the amount of money that we can get out of this material. And it's only as a last resort because we can't store it anywhere. It costs us more money to store it.
Exactly.
We then dispose of it because we have to get rid of it essentially.
Yeah, and yes, and you might recall we've tried the other way too to save on even the purchasing side, like we did a few years ago. Try to buy directly from the manufacturers and so on, from the factories and all of that. And then this is also just to point out, this is it's a cooperative service where all the furniture people put bids in, and so then you're getting a statewide price for it. So then that's how the bids work. So it's through that process in order to try and minimize costs as well.
The reason I asked, because I know there was some concern that I was notified of on social media, where individuals were concerned that we were buying new furniture and getting rid of also new furniture, which is entirely not the case. And so I think I guess maybe more of a question. Do you think it would be appropriate then to, after we go through all of our ability to try to get rid of it as a last ditch effort, post on social media to see if anybody at that point wants it?
Yeah, we can do that as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I mentioned it before, but can we make sure Mrs. Sheridan's old chair goes straight to the dumpster?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can you ballpark the age of Ashley's furniture? Just curious. I mean, I know some
Um,
30, 40.
yeah, it depends on the area. I can tell you, cafeteria furniture might be 50 years old or something like that. Classroom furniture, some of the desks there are probably at least 30, 35.
Right.
But there's probably some pieces that are 50 years old.
Right.
Because part of the other thing that we'll have late at a future meeting will be we're going to do the cafeteria furniture at both middle schools. And again, that we did check because we can't even get pieces to repair it because it's older than me.
I understand Dom's point. I'm sorry, Mr. Ventatelli's point of putting on social media. I would prefer if we had a place on our website and let people know periodically you can go there and check it out so we don't look like an auction house,
Okay.
but a school.
There are a couple action houses too, but one other follow-up question too. On here, it notated that that the furniture is going to be installed. So that means that they're also going to put it together and install the furniture
Yes.
by the, okay, all right. Right. Any other questions? Kind of beat this one. All right, call the roll, please.
Okay, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Covert,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli's a yes. Motion passes.
All right, fantastic. Next item on the agenda is going to be points of pride. And I'll start with Mr. Sunnyberger today.
Just real quick, I attended the CTE night that we had not too long ago. And an hour and a half was not enough time to make it through everything. One of the disappointing things was I was standing in the construction room and I said to myself, this would be a great thing for a kid to go through, even if they don't want to be a construction worker, to do your own DIY, your own house, whatever you need. But then I'm thinking, but my kid also wants to spend 2 hours in the auto shop. It's like we almost have too many choices, which I didn't say that out loud, but it was a great program. And I'm really proud of the offerings that we have right now. And hopefully they do nothing but expand those offerings.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Colbert. All right, thank you. Mr. Powers.
A couple things. The bowling award recognition turned into something that I did not see coming. I wasn't aware that had happened. And it's disappointing because that's twice now this year. It happened in the fall with the football players who didn't get their recognition from their MAC awards. And now it happened to one of our athletes on the bowling team with her All-State award. And these are just like self-inflicted mistakes. It's like, if you're a fan of The Simpsons and you're familiar with Sideshow Bob always stepping on the rake, that's us with these things. And it shouldn't happen. There has to be a simple way at the beginning of the year to just cross-check through all of our sports programs to ensure all the administrative work is done to be in compliance with all the various groups and organizations that you have to be a member of in order to ensure that our athletes are eligible for the awards. So let's get a process in place so that this is the last year we have these. I know some of you guys poke fun at me for how many board meetings I watch from other districts, but I do watch a lot of board meetings from other districts, and I do not see this happening at those other districts. And then secondly, I do want to thank all the parents that spoke up tonight. That's not an easy thing to do, and appreciate the issues that they brought to light. And I guess I would just like some more information for the board as to this idea of what's going on at the IEP meetings with who's present and who's not present, and whether or not there's any predetermination going on, because that's
a little bit different than the information. We did receive some information prior to the meeting about some concerns, and that was not one of them that was shared with us. So I'd like some more information on what's going on there. Other than that, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Ms. Knox?
I also wanted to build on what Mr. Powers is saying. I appreciate the thoughtful and respectful presentation by the parents of our special education students. During their presentation, they also offered a potential solution at the end, and I appreciate that. I appreciate when people don't just bring issues, but also bring solutions. So I think that's going to be a great starting point to work together to figure this out. My second point of pride is Ms. Hoover. I'm not sure that there is anyone in Anchor Bay who doesn't know what the Anchor Bay Community Foundation is. So you guys have done a phenomenal job. I appreciate you coming out here today. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Knox. Mr. Vinatelli?
Thank you. I'd just like to make a couple of comments with regards to the state budget. I do appreciate the House. I know it's a very difficult conversation to have, especially difficult thing to put into a budget because it is such a provocative and perhaps insightful concept, or rather just battleground of ideas. But the idea of having no boys and girls sports is entirely obvious. I've spoken about this in the past. There is a genetic difference between boys and girls, obviously, and you're ruining the athletic nature of these sports by having people identify as girls, even though they are biological males, putting themselves in a position where they're competing against biological girls. Obviously, that's ruining the competitive spirit of those sports, as well as not telling parents about their kids' pronouns. Parents have a right to know. They are the ultimate authority of their kids' education. They're not being told about these items. It is considered a crime against them, and obviously they should be notified. And I think obviously these schools, if they are doing these sort of actions, should be penalized for this. I think that's something that's very appropriate, and I hope that I see that in the final budget.
Thank you, Mr. Vincelli. Ms. Bergmeyer?
I also just want to thank Ms. Hoover for presenting. I know when I first ran for the school board, which was almost 8 years ago, but I have missed some meetings, so you did definitely have me beat. I actually met with, to be honest, I don't know if he's still a member of your board, but a member of your board. And one of his biggest request to me as somebody who was running at the time was to get participation, from current school board members and the district at some of your events. At the time, I don't believe Taste Fest is still going. Yeah. Right. But I do know that you guys do put on some events as well, to raise money and to kind of continue your efforts. So that's just something I thought I would share, to take a look at their website, and because they are always giving back to our students and do a lot of wonderful things. So I appreciate that you came to come. Well, there you go. It sounds like we're all invited.
I'm going to say that out loud because she's not on the mic. 80s party in September.
Also, I did not get a chance to attend the CTE event. I was hoping to, and then with the reschedule, I wasn't able to do that. One thing that actually, especially having two middle schoolers, 7th and 8th graders, and neither of my kids were able to attend it on the rescheduled date either. But something that actually both of them asked, and that maybe we could look towards in the future, is to maybe run it during the day or do something in the future to where the kids can get bussed over and kind of go during the school day or something, or maybe bring it to South or something like that. So that all the kids, regardless, can maybe get some exposure at least, or even, and same with maybe 9th graders that maybe haven't chose a pathway yet or something. Maybe there's some classes that can take some field trips or something during the day to get some exposure to some of it, because they were really looking forward to it. And so I know just you're never going to appease everybody with after school schedules and activities, but just an idea to throw out there. But that's all I got for today.
Thank you, Ms. Burkmeyer. And Ms. Hoover, just so you know, the Anchor Bay Band Boosters does a taste fest. We'll have to make sure you get invited to that as well too. So get you. So I did start off a little short, just for the record, and I added a couple things just based off the discussion. So I do apologize. It is a little lengthy. So kindergarten transition night started tonight at Great Oaks. Lighthouse is on the 29th, Ashley at the 30th, Knowledge Rate in McCont's on May 6th. I'll start at 5 p.m. Lottie is May 7th at 5:30 p.m. I'd like to thank the Anchor Bay Pit Stop Diner for hosting the Anchor Bay baseball team dinner. Thank you for your support. New student registration and school of choice registration is open for kindergarten through 12th graders. Relay for Life is having Taco Thursday tomorrow at the VFW. My wife's out of town, so I will be attending. At the VFW 23 Mile Road, it's 6 to 8 p.m. Donations, $10 at the door. Benefits American Cancer Society. The Shoreliner is hosting Mother's Day brunch. I did sign up for that also. May 7th from 9:30 to 12:30 p.m. Reservations are mandatory. The Anchor Bay Band banquet is Tuesday, May 26th at 8:30 p.m. at Zuccaro's. Tickets are $35. Saturday, June 6th is Trucks for a Cure at the Middle School South. Middle School. It's at Middle School North from 1 to 4, sponsored by the Relay for Life. Congratulations to Middle School North 5th grade students of the month, Abigail Hewitt, Braden Brindwalt Scaife, and Wayne Hall. My points of pride tonight are just, the Anchor Bay Community Foundation came out tonight. Thank you very much for coming out. The special education tonight here, very touching for me, having them sign doing the signing, the pledge. Parents came out tonight also to talk. Thank you very much. It's great to hear from the community. There are some valid concerns, so thank you for coming out and speaking. Great points of pride. Mr. Powers already mentioned it. So the bowling award to All-State Madison. I know I mentioned something, after the mom spoke about the whole event, and I agree, Mr. Powers, 100%. To me, it's unexcusable. We went from a part-time athletic director who split his time as an assistant principal and athletic director, and I don't recall any of these issues happening. We go to a full-time athletic director, including another assistant athletic director, and I seemed that we have, ongoing issues. I'm not sure where the breakdown is, but I would like to get it resolved. Ms. Burkmeyer mentioned some of her campaigning experience. I'm not at that 8th year yet. But I do recall I went door to door and I spoke to parents that were putting sod out on their lawn, and the dad spoke to me and it was basically in tears. His daughter broke, I can't remember if it was a state record or school record, but broke a record in swimming and received no recognition. And the dad was in tears. So tonight, hearing from that mom, I'm emotional just hearing that, because I told that dad I would not let that happen again. And here I am, I'm very upset myself that I'm hearing this happen. Those are things that I ran on to change, and I will pursue that. And once again, it's unexcusable. So that's my 2 cents. And moving on, next is legislative updates.
Unless it really was the budget. That was, yeah.
Any board committee updates?
Just the policy committee met before this meeting, reviewing policies that will come before the board in the future. Just some policy updates in general. Also, we had an attorney present. We were asking and looking for guidance on how to adjust expulsion reinstatements for future behavior issues potentially for those students, and then also looking at revamping our vaping policy and guidance on discipline for vaping, and a little bit more possibly in accordance towards the cell phone policy, streamlining things a little bit. So we're going to be looking further at that. No actual decisions made or anything coming out immediately yet, but so there'll just be some ongoing work.
Ms. Burkmeyer, what specifically about the expulsion policy and reinstatement? Or you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Just looking at, when a student is reinstated following expulsion, and just kind of discussing like what our legally, options are, or if our current policies fall short, in terms of remediating that same student's future behavior, like of new issues, without getting into too much detail.
Thank you.
Building committee met, as well as finance. Building committee, struggling to remember because a lot of these projects kind of blur together. I believe in this one, we may have discussed the HVAC units, boilers being updated, and energy savings will eventually actually save us more money having replaced them now instead of waiting for these units to break down later to then replace them at that point, as well as the additional funds to then be used by Centrix as we kind of voted on today. I believe that's what will be discussed this month in building.
Very great. Thank you. All right. And to wrap up this evening is adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn tonight?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Sunnyberger,
supported by Mr. Powers.
Mr. Covert's twin, Mr. Powers.
Yeah, yeah. All those in favor signal aye.
Aye.
All those that say nay, say nay. Thank you very much, everyone.